Hi, my name is Roberta Jones, and I look at the past to see into the future.
To be a woman, or not to be. To be a man, or not to be. And if I could choose, who would I choose to be? A woman or a man? So, here I am at the Museo Palazzo Massimo alle Terme, one of Rome's 4 national museums, famous for its frescoes from the house of the Roman Empress Livia, recently immortalized in the Sky TV series Domina. But I am rummaging through the Roman sculptures on the lower floor, when suddenly I see a very particular statue. She is, or rather, he is, or maybe in the 21st century we should say they are. I don't know, let's just call it a statue for now. I can see the back view of the statue. The body is soft, sensual. From a distance, the lines of the pelvis are curvy and feminine. The buttocks are rounded, and the ringlets are arranged in an elaborate hairstyle. But as I move to the front, I get quite a shock. I am confronted by a pair of beautiful breasts and a leg trying to cover male genitalia. And that's when I realized I was in front of the Sleeping Hermaphrodite. The statue was created in the mid-2nd century AD and was found during the 19th century in the ruins of a Roman domus on the Quirinale near to the Opera House. It's a copy of a Greek bronze original. But who was the Hermaphrodite? And what does this 2,000-year-old statue tell us about the world of today and the world of the future? According to an ancient Greek myth, Hermaphroditus was the son of Hermes, the messenger of the gods. And you've probably already heard of this name, but in the French pronunciation, Hermes, the name of the famous French bags, yes. And Aphrodite, the goddess of love, sex, and beauty. The story of Hermaphroditus is one of violence, like that of most of the protagonists of classical mythology. Hermaphroditus was a remarkably beautiful youth. In the Metamorphosis, Ovid recounts how he used to bathe in secret in the pool of the nymph Salmacis. However, one day Salmacis surprised him and threw herself on him, trying to kiss him. When he tried to escape, the nymph begged to be united with him forever. The gods heard her prayer and merged the two into one. In Ovid's words, when in the close embrace, their limbs intertwined, they were no longer two, neither man nor woman, one who seemed neither one nor the other. Today, a time in which genders are called into question, Ovid's tale seems highly topical to us as it subverts sexual boundaries and especially the ideals of masculinity. It is also interesting to note that the seducer, or should I say, the aggressor, is a woman. The spring of the nymph Salmacis also acquired the ability to make men who bathed in it effeminate, and when Hermaphroditus realized his body was being changed into a semi-vir, or a half-male, he invoked a curse that every man who bathed in the same waters would also be transformed into a half-man. It is still common belief today that only 2 sexes exist in nature. Although some species, including the Saint-Jacques shells, tapeworms, and earthworms, are in possession of both male and female sexual organs. The Greeks had a rather avant-garde take on the matter. For instance, a fable by the Greek playwright Aristophanes tells that human beings originally had 3 sexes: male, female, and hermaphrodite. These Hermaphrodites were described as spherical beings with 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 faces, and both sets of genitals. However, they showed such strength and vigor that Zeus himself was terrified of them and decided to cut them in half. According to this fable, human beings who feel desire for people of the same sex are the descendants of the divided Hermaphrodites, constantly searching for their other half. And personally, I find this very poetic. In our rational modern age, when we no longer believe fairy tales but prefer to rely on the enlightenment of science, there is a medical term for the presence of both sexes in the same person: classical congenital adrenal hyperplasia. Most people don't know about this, but according to the Intersex Society of North America, about 1 in every 130,000 babies in the United States is born with this condition. Before the Roman imperial era, an intersex child was seen as disabled and as such considered a divine punishment for the family. The hermaphrodite was considered a monstrum, alien to human nature, associated with famine, war, and pestilence, and was given to the purifying waters of the sea so that it would not affect the human sphere. Basically, a family with an intersex child had no choice but to put it in a box and let it drown in the sea. But fortunately, by the 1st century AD, things seem to have improved for the very rare hermaphrodites. That is, if we are to believe Pliny the Elder, who states in his work Natural History, there also exist people born with both sexes combined, what we call hermaphrodites, once called androgynous and regarded as omens, but now as amusements. It is likely that our Roman sleeping hermaphrodite was conceived as a kind of joke. As many as 20 copies of the sleeping hermaphrodite have been documented, which is quite an achievement for a figure who was considered a monster. There is also another one in Rome, in the splendid Galleria Borghese. Like the one here in the Museo delle Terme, the female figure is attractive and charming when seen from behind, but turns out to be an illusion and causes laughter when the viewer sees the male genitalia. The earliest visual representations on terracotta votive objects show hermaphrodites in frontal poses, lifting the edge of their dresses to reveal male genitalia. The male genitals aroused laughter and warded off evil spirits and the evil eye in Roman culture. But history never stops at one interpretation. So, let's fly north and consider another statue, that of the hermaphrodite in the Lady Lever Art Gallery in Liverpool, which suggests a different story. The statue dates back to the 1st century AD and depicts a female body with male genitalia, standing unashamed and playing with her locks of hair in a flirtatious manner. These type of sculptures used to be placed in the gardens of luxurious Roman villas. They were symbols of ambiguity and therefore objects of curiosity. Critics have suggested that these works challenged rigid gender boundaries. 2 sculptures of a hermaphrodite were found in Emperor Hadrian's villa in Tivoli, near Rome. It was well known that Hadrian had a male lover, the beautiful Antinous, so his interest in sexual boundaries is not so surprising. In October 130 AD, during a cruise on the River Nile, Antinous fell into the river and drowned. The details of the accident are not very clear, but we do know that Hadrian was devastated by the death of his lover, so much so he had a city built near the site of the accident and called it Antinopolis in honor of the young man. Also as a result, Antinous is considered the man most portrayed in Roman history. And if that wasn't enough, he even deified and named a star after him. Ah, Antinous, so unlucky in life, but so lucky in his afterlife. But back to the original question, woman or man? In ancient imperial Rome, sex determination was essential in legal transactions, in matters of inheritance. Around the beginning of the 3rd century AD, the jurist Julius Paulus specified that the hermaphrodite could only be present as a witness at the reading of the will, which was the prerogative of men, after verification of genital functions in a state of arousal. Only in this way could they establish that the hermaphrodite was a man. Certainly, displaying an erect penis in a court of law seems like a challenging task for an hermaphrodite, or for anyone really, but apparently the Romans did not seem to be too bothered by such matters. The fact remains that, in the imperial period, hermaphrodites had come a long way in Rome, compared to when they were seen as bad omens and drowned at birth. But what about hermaphrodites today? As early as the 1930s, the artist and writer Claude Cahun stated, "Masculine? Female? It depends on the situation. Neutral is the only gender that suits me." In the very first decades of the 20th century, conceptions of sexual gender began to be questioned. The portrayal of queerness and homosexual desires began to gain visibility, and artists were not afraid to openly express fluid identities, rejecting the rigid binary division of the sexes that characterized Victorian society, a period known for its particularly conservative stances. Women were at the forefront of this change, helping to profoundly shake up social conventions. Many of them openly challenged gender norms, shaving their hair and wearing masculine clothing, and at the same time fought to obtain the same rights as men, such as the right to vote. Some of them went so far as to change their surnames to male or deliberately ambiguous ones, so as to go around gender labels. Famous examples were the poets Edith Cooper and Catherine Bradley, who together adopted the pseudonym Michael Field, and Lucy Schwab, who became Claude Cahun. Constructing and shaping one's own identity was an essential process for queer women artists. Clothes were an important way of drawing attention to one's sexual identity. It should be remembered that until the 19th century, women were forbidden to wear trousers, and the painter Rosa Bonheur, also a lesbian, had to make an official application at the police headquarters in order to wear them for painting. The term queer itself began its evolution during this period as an insult. Queer originally meant strange or eccentric, derived from the German quet, meaning transversal or slanted. In the 19th and early 20th century, queer was a derogative term used to refer to those who deviated from the norm, particularly concerning sexual orientation, labeling the individual as strange, deviant, or non-conforming. In Great Britain, until 1861, the act of sodomy was punishable by death, and after that was still regarded as a crime until 1967. Female homosexuality was not illegal. There is a myth according to which Queen Victoria refused to sign a bill criminalizing homosexuality until the provisions relating to women were removed, arguing that women do not do such things. Many people dispute this, but one thing is for sure. For once, the law was in favor of women. You may have seen the TV series Gentleman Jack, based on the true story of Anne Lister, a wealthy 19th century woman who lived openly with her female lover. She was certainly not arrested, though she was probably a subject of gossip and speculation in the community. A scandal broke out in 1928 with the publication of Radcliffe Hall's The Well of Loneliness, about an upper-class English lesbian. It was quickly followed by Virginia Woolf's controversial Orlando, the story of a poet who changed sex from male to female. Lesbianism became a literary topic and soon afterwards moved into the political debate. The Well of Loneliness was banned until 1959. Creating explicitly queer art in that context was a deeply subversive gesture. Take the case of the British painter Gluck, for example. She was one of the first artists to go beyond conventions, positioning herself as a pioneer of queer art. She was born Hannah Gluckstein in 1895, but later insisted on being called simply Gluck and refused to be called Miss or Mr. She is famous for her androgynous self-portraits. She came from a well-off, traditionalist Jewish family, an ideal environment to generate scandal. One day, while she was still living with her family, Gluck decided to give her father a surprise. Even then, she liked to wear men's clothes. She showed up at home looking totally androgynous, wearing a man's wig and a smart suit. Her father reacted with an outburst of indignation and demanded she change immediately. "Oh, Dad, why are you so alarmed? It's still me." And with the same calm, she began to tell her father how, although dressed as a man, she had been unable to avoid looking feminine in a self-portrait she had just completed. In her paintings, Gluck portrayed friends, girlfriends, lovers, and often herself. One of her most scandalous works, among the earliest sapphic statements in Western art, is the double portrait, Medallion, You, We, which shows Gluck with her girlfriend of the time, Nesta Obermer, a wealthy, married American socialite, side by side, depicted in profile, united by love, with Nesta's blonde hair framing Gluck's like a halo. Claude Cahun followed a similar path. In her self-portrait painted in 1928, she is reflected in profile in a mirror, dressed as a man with very short hair. Also born into a wealthy family of Jewish intellectuals, she shaved her hair and began to dress androgynously, documenting her transformation in a series of tantalizing photographs. She decided to present herself in the most radical sense, dressing completely ambiguously and playing with gender boundaries, making everyone watching her feel confused and uncertain as to what her true gender was. When someone asked her who she was, Cahun replied with an enigmatic smile, "I am Claude Cahun, and you?" Artists such as Gluck and Claude Cahun have examined the social construction of the body and gender identity, even taking up the iconography of the hermaphrodite as a tool to reflect on how the body and gender are perceived and represented in contemporary culture. Ultimately, the hermaphrodite in art has always been a powerful symbol of ambiguity and sexual fluidity, both as a mythological figure and as a cultural allegory. As the most recent works by Cindy Sherman and Robert Mapplethorpe also show, in artistic representations, the hermaphrodite has offered an opportunity to explore social conventions and expectations related to gender and sexuality, questioning traditional boundaries and proposing a vision of the human body that challenges the rigidity of binary categories. From classical sculpture to contemporary art, the figure of the hermaphrodite continues to be a powerful tool for artistic and philosophical exploration of sexuality, identity, and ambiguity. But let's return to the statue here in the Museo Palazzo Massimo alle Terme. According to the historian John R. Clarke, artistic representations of Hermaphroditus bring to the fore the ambiguities in sexual differences between women and men as well as the ambiguities in all sexual acts. Hermaphroditus is a highly sophisticated representation, invading the boundaries between the sexes that seems so clear and standard in classical thought and representation. And that is when, once again, we look at the past to see into the future. Perhaps the statue and the story of the Hermaphrodites in Roman times can challenge our own ideas, constructions, and assumptions of intersexuality, hermaphroditism, and non-binary identities. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. As always, all the pictures, paintings, statues I talk about during the episodes are posted on Instagram on Roberta Jones Podcast, so make sure you follow and also spread the word, because this is a lot of work and it's an independent project, and there are other people as well who work on it. And in fact, I'd like to thank Paulina Spiekovic for the writing, the research, Catherine Ruth Halstead for the editing and the translation, Christopher Anderson for the editing of the sound, and sound engineer Matteo D'Alessandro for the special effects and the music. Thank you so much, guys. This wouldn't be possible without you. And yeah, that's it. Until our next adventure.